we have three main objectives. So firstly, we'll just start off by discussing different array functions. And then we'll move on to discover all the benefits and uses of arrays. And last but not least, we'll explore array formulas to create quick and easy dynamic filters for your specific datasets. So jumping straight in, let's start with array formulas. Excel provides two types of array formulas. An array formula is a formula that can perform multiple calculations on one or more items within an array. Array formulas can either return multiple results or a single result. Now, when we think of arrays, you can think of array as a row or a column of values. Or we can think of it as a combination of rows and columns of values. So let's take a look at a quick example. So let's say, for instance, we have several stores. Now these stores are selling the same two products, but at various prices. So we would like to know the total sales for each of these products across the stores. Now we already know that there are two simple formulas. We can multiply the number sold by the unit price in order to obtain each row subtotal. And then we can sum the function in order to obtain the final total sales amount. Now if we use one array formula here, we could use the array in column C, which is the number sold, times by the array in column D, and then sums all the values to get that final result. But if we compare the two methods next to one another, we can see that the results are exactly the same. The great thing about an array formula is that it can be used to create a subtotal using a formula, but it can also be used in order to create the total using a different formula too. So from this example, we can see that using array formulas provides the following benefits. Firstly, consistency. You can use an array formula with your ranges to reduce any errors within your spreadsheet. Secondly, efficiency. Array functions are an excellent way to build complex formulas. And spilling. Array formulas will automatically spill into the output range across the rest of the table. By this we mean that Excel will recognize that there are output ranges, and it will ask you if you'd like to use the same formula for the rest of your output cells. Now, once we've got the grips on the array formula, there are many ways which we can use in order to apply it to our data, and this makes our lives a lot easier, particularly if you're working with massive data sets. So here are a few examples. It can create quick and simple data sets. We can also count the number of characters contained in the range of cells. We're able to sum only the numbers which meet a certain criteria or certain conditions. These may include the lowest values within a range, or the numbers which fall between the upper and lower boundary. And another example would be to sum every nth value in a range of values. Array constants are components of the array formula. You can create an array constant by entering a list of items and then manually surrounding them with the curly brackets, like this. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can create both vertical and horizontal constraints in arrays, either manually as above or by using a sequence formula. So let's take a look. What exactly would this look like? To create a vertical array, you will use the following formula. So we'll say equals to curly brackets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, semicolon, and curly brackets again. Then when we hit enter, we will see our vertical array. Or we can use a sequence formula. So we'll use the first variable, which is the number of rows. In this case will be 5. Then the number of columns, and of course, the start and the step. We'll use 1, 1 for this example. We could also use the transpose formula. To create a horizontal array, we use a transpose formula. And we enter the array exactly the same way that you would with a sequence, with the row and the column values. And last but not least, we could also use a sequence formula to create a horizontal array. So here we'll open our brackets with the number of rows, secondly our columns, start and step once again. So here we've looked at different examples of how to create vertical and horizontal arrays. But now how would we go about creating a year table? So let's say we want to create a table which reflects each month in each year. Now yes, of course we can go about and type in the months fairly easily manually. We can use the drag and drop function, but there is a way that we can use the different formulas in order to create this table very easily. The different formulas include the text formula. This converts the value to a text with a specific number format. We could also use date. It returns a number that represents a day in Microsoft Excel, date time code, or today. Today returns a current date, which is formatted as the date. And of course, just as we've learned, we could use that sequence formula. So therefore, we'll create a horizontal array. So let's use our table example and let's take it one step forward. So here's a challenge for you. In Excel, you can create a sequence function to create a sequence of values within a table, like we can see the example which we're creating on the screen. So your challenge would be to think of examples when else you could use this function. When will it be valuable for you to use your sequence in order to fill an entire table? Now that we've really got those minds working, let's move on to our next topic. Let's count. As we've mentioned, one of the uses for arrays is to help us to count the length of characters within a cell and find certain values within that data set which meets a specific criteria. So for example, the largest, the smallest, or the average length of contents within a cell. So let's have a look at our data set, which we will be using in the next part of this lesson. We'll be having a look at a data set which includes a top 50 accounts with the most followers across some of the social media platforms. These include YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, and Twitch. Now, the data set includes the channel, subscribers, language, category, and the country. Say you want to know what the lowest number of subscribers in these top 50 accounts are. In this case, we'd use the min function. This returns the smallest number in the set of values. The syntax or array would be as follows: equals to min, and then you'll enter your array. So in our case, it will be B2 to B59. The same can be used in order to find the largest number of subscribers within the database. Although, for this formula, it generally returns the rank which you specify. So for example, if you would like to determine the 5th, the 10th, or even the 15th ranked by subscriber volume. So you'll add it into the end. So let's take a look. So we'll start off by looking for the min or the minimum number of followers. So we'll equals to min and select our array. In this case, it would be B2 to B51. When we click enter, we will see the minimum value is 40. Next, we want to move on to see who has the largest number of subscribers. So we'll say equals to large. Once again, selecting our array, B2 to B51. And this time we want the first rank, so we want the highest number, and closing our columns. Clicking OK, we'll see it's 193. But now let's say we want to know where the 5th rank is, or what's the 5th highest number. So we'll say equals to large. Once again, selecting our database, so B2 to B51, but this time selecting 5 for our rank. And we'll say it's equal to 83.5. Now it's all fine and well knowing which is our minimum and maximum values. But now we want to find out exactly which accounts these values are linked to. So we could simply do this by using the XLOOKUP function. It searches a range or an array for a perfect match, and then it returns a corresponding item from the second range or array. The XLOOKUP function has 5 different variables, so let's have a look at them now. Now we've already found the values which we're looking for, so we know the 1st, the 5th, and the lowest value of subscribers. So we're going to hard code those into Excel by copying and pasting them into the column next to the original formula and using our XLOOKUP. So equals to XLOOKUP. First we'll look in our lookup value. So in this case, it's 40 or K6. Then we'll have a look, where exactly did we find this value? And that will be our lookup array, B2 to B51. Then we want to know exactly what we want to return. So this will be in column A, as we want to know the name of the corresponding value. So we'll select our column and then close our brackets and press enter. And we can see the corresponding account. Now if we drop and drag this formula all the way down, it's nice and easy to find the different corresponding accounts. And as simple as that, you've used your XLOOKUP in order to find the lowest number of subscribers, the highest number, as well as the 5th rank of subscribers. Now, if we cast our mind back to our previous modules, we should now be aware that there's many different ways which we could use in order to filter our spreadsheets. This will help us to find certain values which we're looking for. Now, in this section, we're going to take a look at how we can use some of these values which will assist us in creating different filters for our array formulas. So the formulas we'll be using is unique. Unique returns a value within a range or array. So of course, it will be a unique value. So, like our data set, we want to create a unique country of lists with the top 50 channels with the most subscribers. And then we'd like to sort them. Now the sort function sorts an array or a range. And last but not least, we'll use filter. Our filter function will filter through the range or array in order to find exactly what we're looking for. So let's have a look at exactly how we apply these functions. So let's create a country unique list. We can do this by using the unique function. So we'll say equals to unique, opening our brackets and selecting our range or array. In this case, it will be E2 to E51. Once we're satisfied, we close our brackets and click enter. And this provides us with a list of the different countries. Although, you may have noticed that these countries are not in alphabetical order. So we can simply sort them by using the sort function. We can say equals to sort, open our brackets, and remember to close those brackets after unique. And as we press enter, we'll see that they are now in alphabetical order. And now it's time to filter. So let's create our country filter drop-down list. In order to do this, we can select our cell and go over to our data tab and select data validation. We can choose our list and choose our source. Of course, in this case, we want to use that unique country list and click OK. When we open that drop-down list, we can see all our countries are listed there. Although, now we want to see the channel, the subscribers, the language, the category, as well as their country. So we copy the headings and paste them next to our other heading in Excel. Although, if we choose a country from this drop-down list, it doesn't automatically correlate the answers. So we need to use our filter function once again. Equals to filter and select our array. This time we want to select the entire table to filter through. So once we've selected our entire table, then we'll need to select exactly the column which our countries came from. So we need to say include our countries, E2 to E51. But it needs to equal the country which we've selected from our filter list. So we'll say equals to H21. And we want that exact match. So using 2 inverted commas and closing our brackets. Once we click OK, you can see the corresponding information with the different headings. And every time we go back into that filter list and we choose a new country, the information will display once again. But did you know there are 179 statistics formulas in Excel? But the exact number will be depending on your version of Microsoft Excel. Exactly, we create a data entry form. Then we'll understand the functions and the uses of an Excel form creator. We'll move on to apply advanced form controls. And last but not least, we'll create visually appealing forms. So let's dive in, starting with types of forms. There are several types of forms which you can create in Excel. Firstly, data forms. You can also create worksheets which contain form and ActiveX controls. Like this down says in top form, the most advanced form which you would get is the VBA user forms. Now we're not going to touch too much on this within this lesson. We'll focus on the first two and just quickly do a demonstration on the last one. You can use each type of form by itself, or you can combine them in different ways. When you combine them, you can create a solution that is right for your needs. Excel forms offer the ability to make the data entry easier by using a form. The form gives you a new visualization of your data and allows you to add new entries, edit entries, delete entries, or search existing entries. Some of the benefits of using data forms are having a better visualization of the information which you are entering. It also enables fast data entry due to less scrolling back and forth and up and down. And ultimately, we are human after all, so using forms helps us to reduce the number of errors or mistakes we make when we're entering new data into our spreadsheet. Now imagine you've been hired by a startup company with locations all around the world. You've been hired as a human resource manager. One of the first tasks you need to do is to collect a single database of all the personnel, including their name, hire date, employee number, location, job position, department, etc. This information has been captured on a number of different systems by different stakeholders. These stakeholders may be intermediate team leaders. One of your first tasks is to collect the information, and now you're starting to organize your data, and eventually you may need to import it into your HR system. But this is only once a company has all this information together. Now visualize, what would your final spreadsheet look like? Let's, for argument's sake, that you have 15 fields to enter for each staff member. So at this stage, you're capturing all the staff, past and present. So you have approximately 100 staff members to capture. How would you set up your spreadsheet to make this data capture process simpler? You have probably gone to the default setting to set up your spreadsheet and then freezing both the first column as well as the first row, and able to scroll left and right to enter your data. Well, this is not wrong, but let's have a look at how we can do this by using a data form. A data form provides a convenient way to enter or display one complete row of information in a range or a table without scrolling horizontally. The data form displays all the column headers as labels. Each label has an adjacent blank cell. This is where you can enter your data. You can also capture a maximum of 32 data points in one data form. In the data forms, you can create new row entries, amend the data, delete the entries, and navigate and find your row details by searching any of the data fields within the form. So now that you have an understanding of what data forms look like, let's prepare a task to see what this looks like in a sheet in Excel. The data form Excel is not a popular icon, and it needs to be manually added to your quick access ribbon before you even start. By now, you should be familiar about how you can customize your ribbon, but here's a quick refresher. So we go to File and Options. Once you've opened your customized ribbon, select all the commands in the drop-down box until you find Forms, and then select Forms. Now, depending on the version of Excel, you may be able to add it directly, or you may need to create a new group name. On my version, I need to do the latter. I renamed the forms so we have our quick access bar as it is highlighted here. So we call it Forms. Now that you have the Forms icon in your quick access ribbon, the next step will be to add it to your data sheet. So we go over to our ribbon. So we click the button right at the top and add Forms. Here, I've set up a sheet of data with those fields from our earlier example. The first row is our header, and I've filled one row of data just below. Very important, press Ctrl-T and create that table. But make sure that you are somewhere in the table and then click on your data, select the form icon in your quick access ribbon, and then pull up the data form. So the important thing to remember when you are using this function is to ensure that your data is formatted to be a table. You also need to select any cell in the data set in the table before using the data form button. And it is as easy as that. No more scrolling left to right and up and down to search for the right spot in your table. Even less chance of making an error. And remember, you can input up to 32 data points per row. Now the beauty of a data form is its search functionality. Yes, your data is already formatted as a table, so you can easily use the filter in the header row. Or As we did in the previous lesson, you could use the arrays to create dynamic filters. To use the data form to search, we click on your table, click on the data form icon, click on criteria, and then type in any field you're looking for. Once you've typed what you're looking for, hit enter, and it will return the full data set for the row. You can also use Find Previous and Find Next to scroll through your data, and it will show you where you can find it. So either 4 out of 19. But remember, if data is no longer valid, you can delete the entire row from the data set. And you'll see the number of rows are now less, so it's now reduced to 18. If you search for any fields, so say we want to know exactly what the sales team is, we can type sales in the department, and then using Find, we can click on Next, and you can cycle through all the data points to match that criteria. It is also vital to validate your data. You validate your data to ensure that your data entry points when you're using the data form will match a certain criteria. So let's have a look at the date range. So click on your data column and click on the data tab and validate data. In the drop-down list, we're going to select our date or type it in manually. Here we'll select the 1st of January 2020 or the 31st of December 2021. Once you've entered those details, click back onto your table. Now clicking back onto our table, we want to search for our data. And remember, we've selected a defined range over there. So let's select a random name and see, after we filled everything in, if the data exists or if the data is valid. You can see here that a warning message has appeared as we've entered data which is outside the validation range. So we can always go back and edit the details. And once you've captured everything, then of course you can click enter and your data will be valid. So now that we've mastered all the basic data forms, let's take it one step and walk through some of the form controls and ActiveX controls. You can add controls and other drawing objects to your worksheet and combine and coordinate them with working cells within the sheet. You can find these form controls in your Developer tab and use them to create your interactivity. Form controls are objects that can be inserted anywhere on an Excel sheet. They assist us in working and handling data. They allow us to create a drop-down list boxes, scroll bars, spinners, and checkboxes. They are a great way of making our data interactive. A form control is available in the Developer tab. There are two categories, form controls and ActiveX controls. Remember, it is vital. Before we can use any of these options, we need to activate our Developer tab. So let's see exactly how we do this. So we head over to File, go down to our Options. Clicking on Options, we select our Customize ribbon. In Customize ribbon, we ensure that our Developer tab is activated. So click on the box and then click OK. So let's have a look at each of the form controls individually. Firstly, the button. You can draw a button and assign a macro name. When you click the button, an assigned macro will run. So this means an assigned instruction will run. The combo box is a drop-down list. Even though it works the same as a drop-down list, it is still considered as an object. You need to create a list in any column, so select anywhere on the sheet to draw your combo box. Right-click on the box and choose Format Control. Under the Control tab, you can choose a range where you've made your list and click OK. Then you can click on your combo box and your list will appear. Thirdly, a checkbox. A checkbox displays an item selection. So for example, if we have a checkbox, it can be linked to any other cell and mark it as yes or no if it is ticked. Draw a checkbox on the worksheet. Right-click and select Edit Text. You can change the name of that checkbox. Then right-click again and select Format Control. In the Control tab, link the cells that should be displayed according to if it's ticked or not. We also have the Spin button. This button is used to increase or to decrease a value in a cell. After you've drawn the button, right-click on the button, select Format Control. In the Control tab, you can change the configuration to whichever number you like. Then we have a list box. This is different from a drop-down box. You can create a list of items and then draw the list box. Right-click on the box, choose Format Control, select your input range and link it to the cells. You can choose your selection type, and then you will see your list box appear, and the group box. In this box, we can create multiple controls. It's not interactive, but allows us to have all our controls in one spot. You can draw the box, right-click, and Format Control. The final two are label and scroll bar. So a label does not really have any interactivity. It will only display what is written in the reference cell or in the value entered. And the scroll bar. When we use the scroll bar, we increase or decrease the linked cell value. It is very similar to the spin button, but the difference is when we're scrolling, it changes the value. So let's have a look at these forms in action. So we'll head over to our developer tab, and in our controls, we'll insert our drop-down box. In the form controls, select your drop-down box. First, we'll start by drawing the drop-down box and then right-clicking, going over to Format Control, and our input range would be what we'd like to appear within the drop-down list. And then we'd see which option we chose, linking it to a cell. So when we click on that drop-down list and select any option, we'll see the corresponding result. Next, we'll have a look at how we can create a spin bar. So we'll draw our spin bar, and remember, this is for values increasing and decreasing. Go to Format Control. So our current value is on 0, and our minimum value is on 0 too. But let's say we want a maximum value of 10. And remember, we need to link a cell in order to see our results. Once we're satisfied, we click either up or down, and it will go within the increments. But remember, we set the limit at 10, so we'll go no higher than 10. And last but not least, let's select that option button. Remember, it is very similar to the tick boxes too. So we'll draw, and we can rename our option button to whichever option we like. You could also have a corresponding cell to tell us whether this option box is ticked or not. The same with your tick boxes. Have some fun and play around with the different form controls and see what you can do. But let's take that form one step up to ActiveX controls. ActiveX controls are similar to form controls, but they have a wider range of properties. They provide more flexible design requirements than what we have in our form controls. The ActiveX control allows us to control different events. They can perform many different actions using ActiveX. But did you know? Not all ActiveX controls can be used directly on Excel worksheets. Some can only be used in the Microsoft Basics for Applications or the VBA user forms. You will notice when Excel displays a dialog box saying that you cannot add them into your worksheet, then you'll know you need to head over to your VBA user forms. Now you may have already noticed that the ActiveX controls are right below the form controls. You may have also noticed that they have some of the similar icons, but not all of them are exactly the same. So here are the different ones. Firstly, toggle. This button is used for hiding and unhiding a range of rows. We also have option. The option button allows you to choose more than one option at a time. The main function of this ActiveX control is that when you select an option, the other options are no longer available. And last but not least, image. Image can be used to display different graphics. They can be displayed as an in-bitmap, a JPEG, or a GIF file. Now these are only to name the ones which you can see. There are other options. So if we open those more controls, you can see more ActiveX controls. But now that we're a little bit more familiar, let's see how some of them work. When you want to add or change a control in your worksheet, design mode needs to be activated. In design mode, you can change any of the properties within the controls which you've already made. But you also need to be able to edit the macros and change the sizes or positions. It is important to remember, when Excel is in design mode, you cannot use any of the controls. When you click on the design mode icon and exit the design mode, that is when you can use the controls. When you want to change the state of your controls, you simply click on design mode once again in order to edit them. So like we said at the beginning of this lesson, we're not going to go too much into the VBA controls, but let's have a look at just one and see exactly what it can do. So in this case, we're going to be creating a button. So when we create our button, we're going to head over to our Developer tab. In the Developer tab, we go to Insert and select Button in the ActiveX controls. First and foremost, we need to draw our button. When we've drawn our button, we need to ensure that we are writing a certain code for that button. These codes you can either find on the internet or in different places. Let's say we want our button to tell us, "Hello friend," and what exactly the time is. So now that we've selected our button, we exit design mode, and as we click on the button, it says, "Hi, the time is now 15:30. So these are just one of the cool ways in which we can use the ActiveX controls. There's many more, so I'd encourage you to go play around and see what you can get up to. I hope you've enjoyed this information-packed lesson as much as I have, and I'll see you next